Today I'm talking again about the case of Julian Assange and Wikileaks because number one, we should never stop talking about Julian Assange and Wikileaks for the job they have done in the past at least 1 decade in revealing the war crimes of the United States, the UK, and their allies in the Middle East, North Africa, and Afghanistan. And because number two, there are new updates regarding the case of Julian Assange, which could be a game-changing and could crumble the case against Assange. Although some people are saying on Twitter that there wasn't a case against Julian Assange at the first place for it to be crumbled, which is relatively true, but there are a few updates which I think could crumble the case of the United States against Julian Assange. So the first update is the United States Department of Justice's case against Wikileaks founder Julian Assange took a serious hit last week after a key witness admitted that he fabricated accusations in order to get immunity. Though these revelations were made public by an Icelandic newspaper on June 26, the mainstream media in the US has largely chosen to ignore them. According to the bi-weekly Stundin, the witness, Sigurdur Ingi Thordarson, has a documented history with sociopathy and has received several convictions for sexual abuse of minors and wide-range financial fraud. He was recruited by US authorities in order to build a case against Assange and misled them into believing he was a close associate of the Wikileaks founder. In reality, however, he had only volunteered on a limited basis to raise money for Wikileaks in 2010, but was found to have used that opportunity to embezzle more than $50,000 from the organization, the Icelandic newspaper reports. The US is currently seeking Assange's extradition from the UK. If it succeeds, Assange could face up to 175 years in jail because of the charges filed against him. But now, with Thordarson accepting that he fabricated his testimony, the veracity of the indictment submitted by American authorities in the UK has come under serious question. The court documents, according to Stundin, claim that Thordarson was asked by Assange to hack MPs' computers in Iceland to access certain recordings of them. However, the witness has now said that Assange made no such demand and instead Thordarson received these recordings from a third party and offered them to Assange without checking them himself. He has also made clear that his earlier allegations on Assange asking him to hack computers was false. So, as you can see, the FBI is dealing with and recruiting, like he's paying money to work with someone who has a history and track record of psychopathy and sexual assaults against minors. This is how far the FBI and the deep state in the United States are willing to go against a journalist. This is how much dirty is the FBI in dealing with a journalist and a publisher who has revealed war crimes committed by notorious, brutal war criminals in the United States. It's unbelievably surreal case. It's a case that you want to send someone to over 175 years in jail by using someone who is a sexual abuser of minors, such as Epstein, that he killed himself, right? The second update is, which also happened this week, the British judge on Monday rejected the US's request to extradite the WikiLeaks founder to face espionage charges, saying he was likely to kill himself if held under harsh US prison conditions. So the British judge isn't rejecting the extradition of Julian Assange to the United States because he has done his job as a journalist, or because the allegations against him are false and the case is already crumbling. No, the judge is refusing to extradite Julian Assange to the United States because he or she is afraid that of the harsh conditions, prison conditions in the United States, and he could kill himself, like Epstein killed himself, right? And like the founder of Kaspersky killed himself when the Spanish authorities were trying to extradite him to the United States again. Everybody knows that if Julian Assange goes to the United States, is being extradited to the United States, he will be Clintoned. He will be Epsteined. He will be murdered in the jail. And they will say, oh, he killed himself. And there will be no investigation about it. So, the best thing that the United States can do in this regard, the best thing from their perspective, which is the worst thing for us, is to keep him now in jail in Britain, in a high security jail, for him to be tortured, psychologically tortured, for him to be psychologically destroyed, for him to lose his sanity. Man, just put yourself in his shoes. This guy has been in jail for more than 10 years. And when I say jail, he was for many years in the Ecuadorian embassy. And now he is in a British high security jail. He hasn't seen the sun in the past 10 years. Just put yourself in his shoes. And after all this torture, he's still able and willing to keep himself strong and continue until he sees freedom again. Which I personally, I'm sorry, I'm being pessimistic a bit, but in this world that we live in, where war criminals are ruling us, he will, in my humble opinion, he may never see sunlight again, which is very, very unfortunate situation. Before these allegations, the United States even tried to fabricate rape allegations against him in Sweden by two women. The two women were alleging that Julian Assange raped them, and then these charges were also dropped by the Swedish court. So all these charges against him to give a pretext for extradition were all false. Now the only thing left is the espionage case against Julian Assange, which I will come to it later. And before that, I want to mention two things. One, Julian Assange is a fucking Australian citizen. And what is Australia doing in this regard? Nothing. It's shame for Australia to be a dog for the United States, a puppet for the United States, instead of defending its own citizen, Julian Assange. He is a fucking Australian citizen. Where is Australia from this issue? Why Australia is not defending its own citizen and trying to bring him home? It's unbelievable. I also watched a documentary a few days ago on Deutsche Welle, DW, which is a German government-funded media. It's a documentary about Julian Assange and Wikileaks. It's a 42 minutes documentary. And when you watch the entire thing, you will have more or less good impression about Julian Assange. However, of the 42 minutes, you have 2 or 3 minutes of them which are the most important parts, in my opinion, where allegations by Hillary Clinton are made against Julian Assange that he's a pro-Trump or pro-Putin. These allegations were never documented. It's a fucking documentary. If you call it a documentary, you have to document all the allegations. So the entire movie, 40 minutes, you are saying WikiLeaks claimed this, and you bring the document. Assange said this, and this is the document. But when you say Clinton said this against Julian Assange, you never bring any document. It's the intelligence saying, assessment, intelligence assessments, it's the deep state. So this documentary is made in a way to give you the impression that yes, he revealed war crimes and he's a good guy, but his motivation is not justice. Because he's politically motivated and he's more into Putin and Trump than into the good guys, right? The Democrats that the media always is biased to. It's really disgusting the way they talk about this issue. And they also portray him, they call him a hacker or a whistleblower. Julian Assange is not a hacker. It's not. He's a fucking publisher and an editor. It's not Julian Assange who hacked these hundreds of thousands of documents. There were people who hacked them, like Chelsea Manning, like other people, anonymous people who have an access to this document and send them through the secure network that WikiLeaks created as a platform, in their platform. Julian Assange has never hacked any document, and you can't call him a whistleblower, because a whistleblower is someone, when you're working for the American US Army and you are accessing or hacking some documents from while you're working in the American Army or the US Army, then you are a whistleblower, because you are part of the system, but you are a dissent. Like the OPCW case, we have whistleblowers because they work in the OPCW and at the same time they leak certain documents to the public to show that the organization or the administration of the organization is corrupted. This is whistleblower. But Julian Assange is not part of the American army, is not part of the FBI, is not part of the Clinton administration, is not part of the CIA. He's a fucking Australian citizen and he's receiving documents for him to publish. So even calling him a hacker or whistleblower is false. Now, Julian Assange and the platform that he created, Wikileaks, has revealed war crimes in Iraq, war crimes in Afghanistan, war crimes in Libya, that the United States wanted to invade Libya to steal the oil. Revealed the war crimes of the United States in Syria, that Washington under Obama and Clinton administration, they conspired against Syria and they triggered this proxy war there, and they supported and funded terrorist organizations, and that Clinton wanted to trigger a civil war in Syria because it's in the best interest of Israel. This is what Julian Assange did. For anyone who wanted to read these documents, he or she would be informed about these facts in international relations and how the United States is acting as a rogue state. So he was everything from a journalist, editor, and a publisher, and never a spy or a hacker. However, there is a complete silence about his case in the United States, especially among the mainstream media lapdogs and the puppets of the establishment and the deep state, who would never dare to bring the name of Julian Assange in a positive way because they will lose their jobs and they will be sidelined. So instead, they're like, oh no, I want to keep my job, I want to keep generating money, I want to like to stay as a lapdog, as a puppet for the establishment and the deep state and have a better connections. I generate money, I have good connections and influence, and later maybe they could also become politicians or later some sort of researchers, right, in these think tanks. So it's all about money and prestigious and connections for them. While their colleague, Julian Assange, who has done his job and he revealed these war crimes, is residing now in a jail, in a high security jail, prison in the UK. And while we are unable to do anything about it, the least thing for you also to do is to talk about the case of Julian Assange. It's not a trend to talk about Julian Assange. It's an obligation on every free person to talk about Julian Assange. I'm not telling you to talk about Julian Assange every day, but let's not make his case a trend. When there is an update, we need to know. We need to talk about him regularly. And if it's possible now to organize a bigger protest against in front of the prison in the UK, in London, please organize it. Please do it. My friends and followers from London, from the UK, I'm pretty sure you can do that. Where are all these anti-war movements? Where are the real left-wing movements? Where are the pro-freedom of speech, freedom of press, freedom of journalism organizations, human rights organizations? We need to address this issue regularly. We need to raise awareness, and we need to lobby on a regular basis. Julian Assange deserves to be free with his fiancée, with his son. He deserves to see sunlight. He deserves to walk free, and he deserves to work again and reveal more and more war crimes committed by any government around the world, because we deserve to know how these governments are working and why they are taking certain decisions. Is it for the interest of the people, or is it in the interest of the establishment and the billionaire oligarchs that reside in the capitals of the world? I've been your host, Georg Almasian of Syriana Analysis. If you like my video, please hit the subscribe button and the thumbs up. And please become my patron. It really helps me. And see you soon.
Good afternoon. The High Court delivered its decision that it will allow limited permission for the US government to appeal January's decision to block Julian's extradition. That means that he's still at risk of extradition, of where he faces a 175-year prison sentence, and according to the magistrate, is certain to lose his life if he's extradited. The US government should have accepted the magistrate's court's decision. Instead, it keeps this case going. The case is itself falling apart. The lead witness of the US Department of Justice now admits that he lied in exchange for immunity from US prosecutors. The lawyers of Julian were spied on. Their offices were broken into. Even our 6-month-old baby was targeted while he was in the embassy. And now the High Court has limited the grounds on which they are allowed to appeal. So the case is falling apart. Merrick Garland has egg on his face because of the decision to use a witness that perjured himself in order to try to imprison Julian and keep him imprisoned. And so I'm appealing to the Biden administration to do the right thing. This appeal was taken 2 days before the Trump administration left office. And if the Biden administration is serious about respecting the rule of law, the First Amendment, and of defending global press freedom, the only thing it can do is drop this case. This case is the most vicious attack on global press freedom in history. The US government is accusing a foreign journalist, a foreign publisher who was outside the United States, for publishing true information that incriminated the US military of committing war crimes. Julian is a freedom fighter. He fights for freedom from torture, freedom from illegal wars, freedom from surveillance and manipulation. And that is what the US government is criminalizing. So there's no way to stand up for the First Amendment and defend democracy at the same time as you're prosecuting and imprisoning Julian Assange. Many people don't know this, but the US government is allowed to appeal and have its costs paid by the UK taxpayer. Julian, on the other hand, has to fund his defense himself, even though he won in January, and the US government has decided to appeal that decision. Julian has to pay for his legal costs, whereas the US government is subsidized by the UK taxpayer. Every aspect of this case is profoundly unjust. Julian is being punished for doing his job as a journalist